Welcome all you music fans out there. I'll be your host, Bushrod Gitz. Now let's get jamming.
This is my very first episode, and I thank you for joining me. I know you must be true music fans if you tuned in after hearing my awkward trailer, so I'm excited to speak with you today. I wish to start off talking about cover songs. I always love the debates over which is better, the original or the remake, but I want to concentrate on a specific set of cover tunes. The 1960s garage band songs that later became punk anthems. I know there are plenty to choose from, but I narrowed it down to what I believe are the four most important or popular that came from the actual 60s garage bands. Now you might ask, what do you consider a garage band? Well, I don't want to get too technical trying to describe specific genres. I usually go with the adage of, I'll know it when I hear it. But basically, garage bands usually played simple riffs full of energy. This raw attitude inspired punk generations and, I believe, eventually evolved into punk rock and maybe even heavy metal to some extent. So, what are my choices? Well, let me start with what is probably the most obvious. The world's most recorded rock song. That's right, Louie Louie. You all know it, no matter if you pronounce it Louis or Louis or Louie, whichever. We all know it's classic. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, beat. Even if some people play it with an extra strum in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. I heard that back in the 60s, a bunch of parents were so upset over this song that it was banned from the radio stations, and even the FBI started an investigation to see if the lyrics were obscene or not. Apparently, no one could tell by just listening to the song. Most people do scream it more than sing it, which I'm sure attracted punks and rock and rollers alike, along with its simple beat. But Louie Louie's popularity had to mostly be due to parents' aversion to it, much like the parent advisory explicit content labels did for songs later on in the 90s. Rock and roll is rebellious by nature, after all. Plus, the Kingsmen drummer yelling the F word after dropping his sticks, somewhere around the 54-second mark, had to help the cool factor of their version. If you had a keen enough ear to catch it, that is. And I want to start with this recording. I know, this isn't the first, but it is the version that hit the charts and is widely considered the proto-punk song. To me, Richard Berry and the Pharaohs and Rockin' Robin Roberts and the Wailers' earlier recordings lack some energy and are too horn-heavy to have attracted punks on their own. Louie Louie needed the Kingsmen for that step. Go check it out again if it's been a while since you've heard it. I love the Kingsmen's energy in this recording, but I think the drums carry the song at first. They're so noisy and flare up with these bursts of violence. They're so cool. I mean, what punk rock drummer wouldn't want to sound like that? The singer might have been the first grunge vocal track with how he sings like he's mumbling or half asleep, but then suddenly, almost out of nowhere, he screams, "Okay, let's give it to him right now!" We all know that classic line. That's when the guitar really picks up for the lead part. It's so busy. It almost feels like he's yelling at you rather than playing to you. In 1966, the Troggs added some fuzz guitar, and so did the Swamp Rats with an even grimier sound, which was cool. But one of my favorite versions was from the same year when the Sonics covered it. Their dirty guitar sound fits Louie Louie's riff perfectly. We must give it a listen too, if you haven't in a while. Now, the early pioneers set it up well for all the punk bands that covered it. And there are way too many to mention them all, especially including bands who have only played it live and maybe never made a full recording of it. From the Clash, the Ramones, the Damned, the Vibrators, the Dictators, and on and on and on. These punk bands who covered the song in the 1970s and 1980s gave it a new, rawer edge that helped to cement its status as a punk classic. Black Flag definitely made it their own in a way more hardcore punk style than ever previously done. I especially like their live version from Who's Got the 10.5 Inch. Maybe that's because a song like Louie Louie is best when jammed out live. Just like my favorite version, the Stooges from Metallic Knockout made it about as punk as it can get, and in true Iggy fashion, added way dirtier lyrics. The best part is the freedom to make it your own, not only musically, but especially lyrically. You can describe your fine girl to Louie any way you want. So, let me know in the comments, what is your favorite version of Louie Louie? Now, maybe at first, you wouldn't think of my next choice as a major punk anthem, but Gloria truly is when you think about how many punk bands out there have covered it. Patti Smith, The Clash, The Ramones, The Vibers, The Damned, The Jam, The Stranglers, The Misfits. A truly who's who of punk rock. But it was all started by Van Morrison and his band Them with their 1964 release of the tune. Morrison left Them in 1966, but Gloria remained the band's most famous song. If it's been a while, go give it a quick listen. This original has lots of energy, but like most cover versions that followed in the mid-60s, it's a bit too happy for my taste. Even though I know that it's part of the idea of the song to be excited by Gloria and want to shout all night long, Gloria. Though I do like the Standells live version because it shows to future bands how diverse the song can be. A lot like Louie Louie, one can make the lyrics their own and play around with the volume and length of the tune easily. There's even a female version where the Bells sing Melvin instead. Of course, the most popular female version of Gloria is probably Patti Smith's, who changed the lyrics and meanings completely. She might have helped to popularize it in this way amongst punk fans the most. But for me, Iggy Pop's live covers of the tune are some of the coolest punk versions. I just recently heard U2 do one of the most musically customized versions of Gloria that I've ever heard, live in 1983. It sounds completely different, but that's how flexible it can be and probably why so many have covered it. I have to admit though, my absolute favorite versions of that song aren't punk. They are in order: Jimi Hendrix and then The Doors. I'm sure I'm partly partial to these versions because I grew up listening to them, and it was probably the first versions of the song I've ever heard. But I still listen to them today because they make me feel it. And that is what I look for in a good tune. Can they make me feel something? So, while we're on the subject of great Jimi Hendrix covers, we must talk about another one of the most famous garage tunes, and that's Wild Thing, that was popularized by the Troggs in 1966. I first heard this tune when I was 14 and got my first copy of Jimmy Plays Monterey, and I have loved Jimi Hendrix's version ever since. I never tired listening to it, even now. The raw energy and simple lyrics of this jam has inspired many punk bands. Plus, just about any beginner musician can jam out this tune. Even the singer, since the Troggs version was sung with a high-pitched nasally voice, making the amateur vocals accessible. Maybe more importantly though, is its sexual nature. I mean, what punk, or any other rocker for that matter, wouldn't want a wild thing to shake it, and move them? Some did include the Runaways, X, the Damned, the Vandals, the Offspring. Again, too many to list here. But even the Heartbreakers, Cheap Trick, Van Halen, and such prove that pop and rock and rollers alike love its driving beat and versatility. So, what is my last choice I want to talk to you about of 60s garage band songs that later became punk anthems? It might surprise a few of you, but I choose Steppin' Stone, originally by Paul Revere and the Raiders in 1966. Give it another listen if it's been a while for you. There's definitely a great garage sound there, with the exception of the beautifully sung chorus. But the subject matter works so well too. It sings about someone who is sick of being used by others, in particular, a girl who is trying to move her way up the social scene. Since many teenage punks, and teens in general, often feel like this, is one reason why I picked this tune. But also because so many punk bands have covered it. That is probably partially due to its simplicity and that it sounds good if you're a great singer or even a not so great singer. Sometimes titled I'm Not Your Stepping Stone, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the version popularized by the Monkees, and rightfully so since they had such a big hit with it. But it was 10 years later when the Sex Pistols made it popular within the punk circles. If you go check out their version, I think you'll see why. They proved that it could be a great punk anthem. So many followed with their own versions like Johnny Thunders and State of Alert, but my absolute favorite is by Minor Threat. And I'm not alone. This version is considered to be one of the most influential punk covers of all time. For good reason too. It has such a cool intro, and just listen to how fast and heavy it is, yet still keeps that rhythmic flow of the tune. Well, there you have it. My choices for the 1960s garage band songs that later became punk anthems. Louie Louie, Gloria, Wild Thing, and Steppin' Stone. I'm sure many of you have different suggestions and options, and I'd love to hear them. So please, don't be shy about leaving me some comments.
I'd like to thank all you listeners for tuning in today. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe. And I'll see you next time on Soundtrack Hacks.